Well, a very good morning and welcome to Media Monitor, the show that monitors and evaluates media coverage of leading stories of the week and puts the media in the spotlight. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. We're live right here on Channel 44. That's SABC News for all local and all global news. In our lineup today, we start by discussing today's newspaper headlines, the coverage of the tragic incident that happened in Nigeria, the coverage of the Lesotho political crisis. Has the media investigated the recent crime figures, the Ebola virus, and lastly, the TUT student protest? Now, to give us analysis on the coverage of these stories, let's welcome Mr. Jacob Mujokoro, a media studies lecturer at Damelin College, Mr. Siyasanga Tyali, a lecturer at the University of South Africa, as well as Mr. Tarquin Nortje from Boston Media House. Remember, you can call us to give us insight on the stories that you think deserve to be covered by the media, but of course, we're omitted on the following numbers: +2 711 714 6847, 714 6843, and 714 6857. You can share your views and comments on Twitter at SA Media Monitor, as well as like our Facebook page, Media Monitor. A very good morning to you. Now, as per tradition, before we go into discussion with the stories that made headlines throughout the week, let's first take a look at today's newspaper headlines. Panel, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Media Monitor. Let's start with you, Jacob. What's making news headlines for you today?
Well, for me today, there's a story in the Sunday Times about the ANC wanting to call Parliament to protect the President and the Vice President, the Deputy President. I found that story to be a worry, rather, because there's a slippery slope right there that the ANC wants to take the country in. And I'm actually surprised that not many media houses picked it, because it is a story that is at the crux of a parliamentary and a constitutional democracy like South Africa. You cannot have rules to govern parliament's discussion of certain things that are supposed to be accountable to the country. So I was expecting a lot of media houses to actually pick up that story and dissect it, but it's only a footnote in one of the Sunday papers today. But I expect maybe this coming week it will be discussed in full.
I see the report has also given it page 2 there. Siyasanga, what's making news headlines for you today?
Well, for me, the interest is on the developments around the Nigeria tragedy. Quite a number of papers are carrying the story. And I've noted a particular interesting coverage on the City Press, because I think that the City Press is running with about 3 stories on the tragedy. And one of their coverage, it was done by a person who's based in Nigeria. And so I thought that, that kind of like gives the story a bit of credibility, because, it's someone who's from Nigeria, and, that analysis, it's quite interesting.
Very interesting indeed, because we're always crying about the lack of resources and how we cannot get access to information, especially in our neighboring countries. Tarquin, what's making news headlines for you today?
For me, it's from the Sunday Independent, is the 140 billion rands spent per year on safety, and 50% of which, or almost 50% of which, is actually being spent in the private security sector, which is quite alarming for me due to the fact that we should be relying on our police and South African defence forces to actually keep us safe, rather than having to look elsewhere for safety.
Very interesting topic, seeing that the crime figures have also come out. And I know it was a story that was very late in the week, but none of the papers have actually dissected the crime stats. Jacob, what do you think?
The crime stats, obviously, they are to be discussed, because this is actually something major, like my colleague here said. But obviously, I think the papers discovered that there are more interesting stories, I suppose.
What could be more interesting than the figures of the level of crime in our country?
Like Nigeria, but it's about priorities. It's really about priorities, and I'm sorry to say that the priorities in this instance, they are upside down. The crime statistics, they are really important. And to dissect, not just to give us the statistics, but to dissect what does it mean? Does it mean to the country? What does it mean for the country as a whole? But unfortunately, it was never done.
Very interesting indeed. Well, we're going to leave it there with our top stories in the newspapers today. In our lineup today, South Africa learned of the worst loss of South African lives overseas in decades after a Nigerian church collapsed and more than 80 South Africans lost their lives. Media Monitor producer Levan Mklari compiled this report.
National media are abuzz after TB Joshua's church collapsed, a tragedy that claimed lives of more than 80 South Africans. A thorough investigation is ongoing as to what led to the incident.
We will correlate everything together. By the time we correlate things together, we will come up about what led to the building collapse after we might have conducted proper investigations. We will come up with the people that survive in the hospital and the people that responded very well to the treatment. Then we will do the DNA test.
One of the survivors describes her ordeal.
It is God's work. People came out alive in a large number. I'm saying that even after 5 days, people were still retrieved alive.
Department of Social Development is offering trauma counseling to families of the victims and survivors.
Panel, I just want to hear your views. Why did it take South African media so long to report about this tragedy? Let's start with you, Tarquin.
Well, I've read and seen a couple of videos and that stating that a lot of the churchgoers, as well as security that had been hired, had been stopping reporters as well as emergency workers from getting into the actual area of the building. Also, on the news this morning, I heard that one of the Nigerian journalists stated that a lot of journalists around the area had been handed envelopes with a sum of money to actually not report and not cover on the actual incident, which is kind of upsetting due to the fact that a lot of people actually apparently took said envelopes. So it's kind of a thing of people not being allowed as well as people being paid off to report, well, not report on the actual incident.
This is the first I'm hearing about envelopes. Siyasanga, your views?
Yeah, I think that in my opinion, the manner in which this whole situation was handled is very appalling, especially coming from from the Nigerian authorities, because you read in the media that it took quite a number of days for people to be allowed on the site so that the rescue missions could start. And so one asked themselves, how many people died that could have been saved, in those number of days. Also, as my colleague is saying here, that it has become apparent that a number of journalists were bribed because yesterday the spokesperson for the South African International Relations tweeted a link to some sort of a press conference that was held by Joshua, where he was allegedly, bribing these journalists and telling them, or implying how they should be going about reporting on this story. So, in my opinion, it took a while, for the tragedy to be reported based on those circumstances.
Jacob.
Yeah, well, the story is very concerning because the way that this whole story was handled, even the number of people that are dead. The first time we heard that 67 people were South Africans, that is, were dead in this collapse, and then the Nigerian authorities were saying 63 people in total had died. Now the number of South Africans has risen to 84, and they're saying a total of 86 have died. So you then start to wonder, is there a cover-up that is going on there? And I think there is a cover-up, not only of the number of casualties that we have, but also in terms of what caused the actual collapse of the building. There's a lot of scapegoating, and the prophet does not want to take responsibilities. The responsibility to say, my building was not in a good condition, because we are being told that they were building more stories on top of the building, yet they never enforced the foundation. So it's actually a concerning story because there's a lot of covering up that is going on, not only in terms of giving out information, but in terms of determining what actually caused the collapse. And I think journalists should go deeper to really find out what's going on.
We're going to expand more on that, Jacob. Let me take our first caller, Kondile from Mangaung. A very warm welcome to you on the show. Your comment, please.
Morning, Alicia, the panel there.
Morning, Kondile. Go ahead.
Alicia, look, I think if we're saying that part of the responsibility of the media is to educate people, this should be one of the lessons, what has happened, the tragedy in Nigeria. One, we need to go back and look at the practices and the mushrooming of the churches so that people at least can make determination as to whether what they are following is correct and so forth. Because really, if there was a comment earlier during the week on TV that if there's a whole lot of other Nigerian citizens who are in the practice, same practice as Prophet Joshua, why do we really have to go to Nigeria? But at the same time, let's also look at the practices that are happening within the country in terms of churches, educate people, but also make people conscious when they follow some of the church-related activities. But secondly, quickly, it is the amount or the quality of work we see when it comes to building and the construction itself. You remember with the mall and so forth. What has happened there, it then says people must start beginning to question some of the things. When the construction takes place, is it safe? People are following what is happening, because part of what the South Africa is doing now is infrastructure development. And this is actually saying to us, let's do some of the things with sensitivity and correctly.
Thank you so much. That's Kondile from Mangaung. Now, panel, very interesting view that he says that the media should bring more awareness. Now, has the media probed into who pays for these travel costs, investigated their standards of living, and also explained why they travel all the way to Nigeria? A very interesting point that he brings about. Let's start with you, Siyasanga. What do you think?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think that the media has done a pretty good job in terms of taking this issue and putting it in the public agenda, because we know what is happening there. But the issue for me is that there is so much conflicting information coming from the from the people in Nigeria. Because on one instance, you read in the papers that quite a number of buildings, I think 1 or 2 buildings, have collapsed in the area or where TB Joshua's building was built. And in another instance, you hear about how people were blocked, and you hear around those things. So the media has brought this to our attention, but the problem is that there's so much information coming out of that, and you kind of like not sure which information to look at and which one to believe. So I think that's the problem, the amount of information that is coming there, and that is conflicting. Very conflicting
information indeed. Here, the South African government has played down suggestions that the delay was caused by the Nigerian authorities being slow to provide information about the tragedy. And then here it says the Nigerians have flatly refused our search and rescue missions the same way they initially refused international assistance during the search for the missing girls. What do you then believe, Tarquin?
Well, I did see that we've intended... All
right, before you answer, Tarquin, let me take Simon from... Simon, a very good morning to you from Boysen, and welcome to the show. Your comment, please.
Good morning. How are you, madam?
We're very well, thank you. Simon, please go ahead with your comment, sir.
I want to know if the church will help in burying the people in Nigeria or in South Africa also.
Please ask again, Simon.
I want to know if the church will be able to compensate people by burying them.
All right. Hopefully we can see that in the reports that will be upcoming in the media. Tarquin, let's carry on.
As I was saying, that South Africa's now got a plane that they're planning on landing in Nigeria in order to actually get the survivors home, which I think is a good thing. But at the same time, none of the deceased bodies will be brought back in order to, like the caller said, actually bury the dead in that. And that's a problem for me. They're saying that they need to identify the bodies, but there are some bodies that have been identified with IDs and that have been found on them, and they're not being sent back either. And that's an issue that I don't quite understand. But as to the bodies that have yet to be identified, they're still doing forensic analysis and that of the bodies to find out actually who the people are in that. So let's hope that we get everyone home in time.
And Takalani on Twitter says, is TB Joshua not making any contribution on the return of the dead as well as the injured? Very interesting that even our callers actually think that he needs to show some sort of responsibility for this, but we haven't seen any angle towards that in the media, Jacob.
Yeah, well, what has been happening is he's been trying to blame others and to blame other factors for whatever happened there. And that is the concerning part, because the first thing that you have to do in a case like this is to take responsibility, and then you try to move on. But he has refused to take responsibility. But then on your other question on where South Africans are getting the man to go there, I really think that's none of our business. But what is concerning me in this instance is Nigeria is part of the West African hotspot for Ebola. Right? But people are comfortable in going there and then coming back to South Africa, and there's a danger of spreading the Ebola virus all over the place. But then the government cannot do anything to stop some people from going there. But I would just hope that people are well informed out there. They need to know that these are the things that are happening, and maybe just put off your trip until certain things are in place, because like we will be talking about Ebola just now. So it was a concern to me to say, how come we had so many people going to West Africa at a time like this, even if they are financing their own trips, but these are journeys that can be postponed for a later time until everything has been sorted out. So some of those things that maybe the media should also be probing on why people are moving to West Africa at a time like this.
Thank you so much there, Jacob. Well, when we return, we're going to continue to discuss the coverage of the recent crime statistics. Join the conversation by calling us on +2 711 714 6843, 714 6847 and 714 6857, and let us know which stories anywhere you are where you feel were not adequately covered by the media. Share your views and comments on Twitter at SA Media Monitor, and of course like our Facebook page. Don't go anywhere.
SABC News, we've got Africa covered.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. You can also be part of our discussion by calling and tweeting us. You can ask your questions too via our Twitter account. That's at SA Media Monitor, and direct them to my panel. We also want to hear your views on our topic, so do give us a call. Let's now take Sipho from Deep Club. Sipho, thank you so much for staying on the line. Your comment, please. Sipho, can you hear us?
Hello, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, my comment.
Sipho, please turn down your TV set so that we can hear you properly. Sipho, please turn down your TV set and try us again, please. We're struggling to hear you.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, please turn down your TV set, Sipho.
Can you hear me clearly?
No, we can't hear you clearly, Sipho. All right. I think Sipho should try us again. Please, our viewers are reminded and urged, if you're calling us, please do turn down your TV set so that we can be able to hear your comments. Now, let's go on to our next story. The latest South African crime stats painted a bleak picture of violent crimes in the country. Let's take a quick look at this insert.
Also do observe that there are still high levels of violence and aggression in our society, and that in itself is also quite a serious concern to us, and it should be a concern to all South Africans.
All right, panel, this is the question that I asked earlier on. Has the media sufficiently analyzed the crime statistics to an everyday man in the country? Jacob, let's start with you.
No, they haven't. Probably the reason is they don't understand statistics, the people in the media. Because what we have was the live conference, which was telling us what was happening, but no one in the media has broken it down to us. What does this mean? What exactly does it mean? Are we improving? Are we going back? Are we still at the same level? And it's a concern, because these are the things that the media should be interrogating. I saw a tweet earlier during the week about how a woman is no longer being raped in 24 seconds, but in 25 seconds. You know, those are the kind of things that the media need to interrogate. But they didn't. They simply gave us the live broadcast, and they ended there.
But just to be fair, Jacob, on that point, obviously the stats were announced very late in the week. It was on a Friday. I was actually hoping the Sunday papers were actually going to just totally do away with them.
Yeah, well, you would expect that. But then they didn't. Maybe it's not a good Sunday read, I don't know. Maybe they prefer us to read those kind of things on a Monday. So we're giving them the benefit of the doubt here, and we'll wait for Monday and see if they will. But I doubt it.
Siyasanga?
Well, in my opinion, one would assume that those kind of stories, they would lead the Sunday papers. But I've also noticed that there's a sort of like a lack of the coverage around crime in the Sunday papers. Which in a way is because I think that there has not been much controversy around crime statistics, this time around. But to be fair to some media organizations, I've noticed yesterday that the Star, the Saturday Star, carried, the statistics story. And they also included what you call graphs, to indicate what is going up and what is going down. And what was concerning is that the murder rate is going up, I think, by 5%, and other counter crimes have also gone up. And so, but I think that the major reason why most papers have not carried out the stories because there's not much controversy. Maybe in the next few weeks, if some statistician out there sees some discrepancy and then questions arise, we might see this upsurge of the issue around the statistics.
Before you answer, Tarquin, let's take Supermom. She says on Twitter, our justice system allows offenders to walk. Why will anyone be scared to commit a crime that they can easily walk away from? Let's hear your views, Tarquin.
Like I said, is about the 140 billion being spent on the security. It's completely upsetting that we can hardly see anything in the media, and what we do see is almost everything has gone up. And yet we're spending so much on security in terms of our actual South African police force and defense force, and we still have to employ security sectors, private security sectors to look after us, and yet everything is still on the rise. And it's kind of an alarming thing to think about, that we've got such a rise on the crime stats, and yet we're not covering it sufficiently in terms of our media.
Look, guys, we get stats so often, yet most people haven't got, you mentioned this earlier, Jacob, but I want us to extend it. Most people haven't the slightest clue what these statistics are about, how they're conducted, or even what they are done for. Media needs to start from that angle, don't you think?
They do, but that's exactly the problem with the media, because they don't understand themselves. Journalists don't understand these things themselves in the first place. So you cannot explain anything out there to someone that you don't understand to someone. So it's a challenge to the journalists. They need to up their game. They need to understand before they start reporting. It's just like if you look at how business is covered, even in the business section of the news, of the newspapers, you'll discover that there's actually a lack of understanding of the things that are being covered by the journalists themselves. The journalists that we have, the breed of journalists that we have these days, is a breed of journalists that is much more interested in politics and scandals. That is what they're interested in. But things that really matter to people, they don't understand them. And so they cannot interrogate issues that they don't understand.
That's
and just to respond to Supermom on Twitter there, she says our justice system allows people to walk. But then that's a bit unfair again, because our justice system is premised on the principle that everyone is innocent until they are proven guilty. So maybe we need not blame our justice system, but we need to blame our prosecution system. If they're failing to prove that these people are committing crimes, there's nothing that the justice system can do. People will walk. So they have to prove that someone committed a crime before this, because it's only when you are in this situation that you see that the justice system in South Africa actually works. When you've been accused of a crime, that is when you see that it works. But when you're on the other side, it seems like it's not working.
Very interesting, Jacob. There, it's not the justice system, it's the prosecution there. Do you agree, Siyasanga?
Yeah, I think so, because our country operates on a fair and open justice system. But one point that I would like to uptake and agree on is the issue of specialization by our journalists, because you find that a journalist does not specialize in a certain field. You know, they all over the place, and as you said, that, you know, most journalists are interested, you know, in around political issues, and we've seen kind of like questionable coverage around the Ebola issue. We kind of like seeing questionable coverage around the statistics issue, and I think that one of the, you know, issues that could solve this is the new type of journalism that is being introduced, you know, by some of our tertiary institutions, because there's a sort of like a program that is called data journalism, and this is where you know, a journalist would construct a story, you know, based on the data that they have. And I would argue that, you know, if ever one is faced with statistics, you know, that's where, you know, this type of journalism would really help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Siyasanga. Let me take Tikine from Durban. Tikine, a very warm welcome to you. Your comment, please.
Thank you. There are two comments, my sister.
Make it quick.
There are two comments. One is with regard to the crime. The other one, is about Nigeria. The first one is that in Britain, there's a strict law. If you comment about crime, you expose their crime, you are going to be arrested. And the secret on the crime, acts of criminology. But in South Africa, they are free. That's why we abuse that as a press. Secondly, when the question of Nigeria, most of the priests here, they've left the pulpit, gone to parliament, and became opposition parties. We saw a lot of people from Nigeria coming, opening mushroom churches, even in the factories here, and then we saw a lot of satanism going on, and then that's why people have to leave here and go to Nigeria. So we can't blame them.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kikina from Durban. They're wisening us up a little bit. They're schooling us. Tarquin, let's hear your views on the crime stats.
Well, one of my huge issues trying to find the actual crime stats and that in the newspapers, as well as one thing that I did find on the crime stats is the representative for the ISS, if I'm not mistaken, stated that the SA police force are actually releasing the crime stats 6 months too late. That the crime stats go from over a financial year, and yet only getting released 6 months after that, which kind of makes them sort of outdated, which is also a huge issue, due to the fact that a lot can change in 6 months, especially as we see how much changes in a year. 6 months is quite a long time as well. So we're missing a lot, and we can't really see where we need to improve and what we need to improve on when the statistics have changed in that time period. So I think that we need to start releasing the crime statistics as soon as possible, because 6 months is not quick enough.
Now, which active role do you think that media can extend in terms of creating awareness and providing public safety measures if you find yourself ever in a situation where you have to face a crime?
Well, I feel like public service announcements are always a good thing. One of the things that I've seen on the Ebola as well is a public service announcement. But for crime as well, public service announcements, if you put them onto the right media channels, many people will be able to see it. And also I think as media, we need to try and just get the common everyday man to want to help his friend. I mean, the amount of times I've been stuck at a robot or something where you see smash and grabs and no one gets out and no one helps, no one actually tries to attempt to help the person in need, where we need to, as people, start helping each other, start having a common good between each other.
Thank you, Tarquin. Media needs to really simplify those. We just see the figures and the percentages and graphs going up in green. You just don't understand. Well, we're going to leave it there on that topic. And when we return, we're going to look at the media coverage of the Tshwane University of Pretoria protest. You can still be part of our discussion by expressing your views as to which stories you think should have been covered by the media by calling us on +2711 714 6843, 714 6847 and 714 6857. Share your views and comments on Twitter at SA Media Monitor, as well as on Facebook. Stay with us. This is Media Monitor.
SABC News delivers stories
that unify the nation
in many ways. Stories that inspire us
to see the world differently, appreciate
and celebrate our diversity.
And mostly,
they make this place a better country to live in
despite our color, beliefs or culture.
I
am
Mahendra Raghunath.
Tabile Wado.
Lulu Kabu.
Join us every day
as we provide updates on
local and international news
straight into your home.
We
are
SABC News.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. You can still be part of our discussion by calling us on the numbers that will appear at the bottom of your screens. There they are, not forgetting Facebook as well as on Twitter. Tshwane University of Technology's academic activities were disrupted at the institution's Ga-Rankuwa and Pretoria campuses as students were protesting against the lack of funds in the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Panel? Once again, why is it that media ignores such important stories? We're more than halfway through the year and these people are about to write their final exams. Jacob, let's start with you.
Now, this one is an interesting one because students all over the country, they always find the slightest thing to demonstrate about. So I would give the benefit of the doubt to the media. It could be fatigue on part of the media because they've been reporting on protests in Durban the other time, and other various universities. They're always protesting against one thing or the other. So they get fed up, probably. They get fed up about these protests, and then they just give footnote coverage to this kind of issues, because students are known to be people who love demonstrating at every opportunity. So people now probably they don't take them seriously or something like that. So the media just gives a passing coverage of the issues because they're always doing something of that sort, which of course is a disservice to their grievances, which are supposed to be addressed. But unfortunately, because of the history that they have, then people usually do ignore them.
All right, you know what, I want Siyasanga to answer it, but before we get on with that, let's take Pastor Zach from the Northwest. Pastor, a very good morning to you and thank you for joining us. Your comment, please.
Yes, my comment is that as a pastor, I've been investigating the operations of the Illuminati, and I'm not happy with this incident, but because I can see a lot of footprints of the Illuminati. Number one, we know that September is the month for the Satanists to make sacrifices with people, like the 11th September in 2001 in America. In fact, I was expecting something to happen on the 11th of September. I was only surprised that it happened on the 12th in Nigeria. Number two, the number 67 for the people who died. I know that the number 67 is a big number for the Illuminati. For example, on the 18th of September, we have asked to work for 67 minutes on the birthday of our former president, Mr. Mandela. Why 67 minutes? People have never asked themselves this question. Why not exactly 60 minutes? I mean, it's common. 60 minutes is 1 hour. Now, 67 minutes is that 6 plus 7 is 13. And the number 13 is the greatest number for the Illuminati. The flag of the USA flag has got 13 lines, and then several things, the number 13. Now, the last thing that I'd like to comment about is that the building collapsed demolition style. Everybody who looked at that building, it is clear that it's a sacrifice for people. The building collapsed demolition style. That's not these 3 points and the others that I will continue to investigate do not make me happy. So
thank you, Pastor.
Let's investigate the footprints of the Illuminati.
Thank you so much there, Pastor Zach, all the way out in the Northwest, giving us more knowledge and a very interesting view of what could have gone on in Nigeria. Let's wrap up this discussion on TUT. Siyasanga, you work with students. What's going on at TUT and why is media shunning its back on what's happening in the protests?
Well, in my opinion, I think that it goes back to the issue of controversy and the media. We know that the media loves controversial issues. And, the TUT strike has been ongoing, I think, for more than a week now. And we have seen media coverage here and there, but, it has not been really as huge as, as it started yesterday. And I think that the reason why it started yesterday is because of the whole burning of cars and the whole burning of property, which goes again to the controversy around the issue. Now, what is interesting for me is that whereas the students are striking, for financial issues, now the angle that the media is taking, since yesterday is that what becomes the news is the burning of property, is all those issues. And this makes, the concerns of the student take a backward seat. So that's my opinion around this issue.
Very interesting indeed, because that's the biggest issue that we want to cover. All right, well, we're going to have to end it there, and stay tuned, because when we return, we're going to be discussing the coverage of the Lesotho political crisis as well as the Ebola virus. You can still call us on +2711 714 6847, 714 6843, and 714 6857, and share your views and comments on Twitter at SA Media Monitor as well as on Facebook. We'll be back shortly after this.
Zoom into Africa. This is the Gambia. The president is Mr. Yahya Jammeh. The Gambia got independent from United Kingdom on 18 February in 1965. The population is more than 1 million people. One of the major languages spoken is Mandinka. Monetary unit is the Dalasi.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. You can still be part of our discussion by contacting us on the numbers that will appear at the bottom of your screens. Not forgetting Facebook as well as Twitter. Let's take Chris from Zambia. Chris, a very good morning to you, and thank you for calling us. Your comment, please, sir. Chris, are you on the line with us all the way from Zambia?
Yes. Yeah, I'm still on the line. I'm waiting.
Right. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. Please go ahead with your comment, sir.
Okay. So what I want to say is that the issue concerning one of your men, they are saying that there was the reporters there on the ground. They are giving some envelope not to cover exactly what happened.
Yes, Chris. Go ahead.
So, what I'm trying to suggest is that they should investigate that matter properly. And if it is found out to be true that some journalists were given some envelope not to cover exactly what happened, now I would suggest they should prosecute the church, because that is a serious criminal offense. A lot of life was lost. So I don't know what they were trying to hide by not allowing the journalists to exactly give out the information as exactly what happened.
Chris, thank you so much for your contribution right here on Media Monitor. Chris calling us all the way from Zambia. Getting back to your earlier point, Tarquin, we found out from you that there were journalists being given envelopes to not report of what was going on the scene.
Yeah, well, what I heard it on the news this morning, actually waiting to come into the show, is that it was a Nigerian journalist that actually commented, and he said that he was super shocked to find out that a lot of his colleagues had actually taken the envelopes to not report on the incident. And he says it's very unethical, and I agree with that. It is unethical. We need to get the story out there so that everyone knows what's happening and what's happening with who. And how long it's going to take until everything's sorted out, and actually what the cause was and who's at fault. And I just think that everyone needs to start taking a little more responsibility as well in terms of what's happening.
Thank you so much. That's where we're going to leave it on that story and move on to our next story now. Police and military exchange gunfire in Lesotho's capital, Maseru, in the early hours of Friday, the latest spasm of violence to rock Africa's tiny mountain kingdom. We've called the Lesotho Commission officers in Pretoria to give us reasons on what started the violence, and they blatantly refuse to speak to us. Now, panel, once again, we've heard it firsthand from Lesotho's publisher last week that the lack of resources was getting in the way of delivering the story. Are we still hiding behind that now, Jacob?
No. It cannot be resources. No.
What is it?
No way. This one is difficult to really pinpoint why there's scarce coverage of the issues that are happening in Lesotho. Maybe there's no audience. Probably there's no audience for the story in Lesotho here in South Africa. Probably that is how the media feels, that there's no audience for the story. I don't know, but a lot of people...
That can't be true, Jacob. We've been covering this story since it broke out, and people from Lesotho themselves have been calling us to tell us they don't know what's going on in their own country, appealing for media to come on the ground and get the real facts.
Or maybe Lesotho doesn't matter. I don't know.
Why would it not matter? We are landlocked. We're part of the SADC region together. It can't not be a national matter. Siyasanga, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, in my opinion, one of the problems that are facing, the media industry is that they are failing to invest in foreign bureaus or, in putting up journalists in different countries, so that when stories break out, that, we have first-hand information around what is happening. And so I think that one of the problems around Lesotho is that some journalists, they are not there, and so you kind of like get second-hand information on what is really happening. But what I would really like to say is that I think that it's in South Africa's interest to know what is happening in Lesotho, because any controversy or any coup or whatever that is happening that could directly affect South Africa, because if you have a problem around your neighbors, what tends to happen is that people from your neighbor come in your country. So I think that it should be questioned why our media has not really, kind of like critiqued and analyzed the whole situation, so that everyone is informed around what is happening.
Tarquin, what seems to be the problem in terms of getting the adequate information?
Well, I think we just, like we've heard already, is that we haven't had enough people going into Lesotho and actually trying to get the story. I don't think there's enough media interest, and there really should be a lot more media interest in the story, because like has been said by my colleagues now, is that it could and will affect South Africa quite directly if we don't actually get this problem sorted out and actually get some just coverage on the problem, so that people can see what the issues are. And also, I mean, if you're in the country, you should be able to know what's going on in your country. Why are we having these coups? And it will help you know who you need to support. And, maybe the military coup is right. I'm not saying they are. I don't know who's right and who's wrong. And that's the problem, is there's not enough media around it. And I don't know who's in the right and who's in the wrong and why the fights are happening. So we really need to get a lot more media coverage around it and just more media interest.
All right. And also, of course, it seems that the problem is around the police and the military. Why hasn't media fully investigated what seems to be the problem between the two, Jacob?
Well, it will go back again to the issue of the media's interest in the whole story. Let's suppose this was happening in Zimbabwe. Every journalist will be in Zimbabwe right now. But it's happening in Lesotho, no one is interested. So it's a matter of the media prioritizing certain issues and not prioritizing certain issues. Maybe they see it as a small story, I don't know. Because if it happened in another country, everyone would be interested. And the issue of controversy as well. The kingdom of Lesotho has not been seen as to be a very controversial kingdom over the years. So maybe there's not too much controversy surrounding what is happening right there now. So the media is not really interested, as, for example, if it was happening in Zimbabwe. So I think the media need to understand the repercussions of the coup that can possibly happen in Lesotho. What does it mean to the region? What does it mean to South Africa? And what does it mean for the security of South Africa itself? And probably the reason why they're not doing that now is because they do not understand how far this could go in terms of the security of South Africa itself.
Yeah, another thing that, I would like to add is that, South Africa or South Africans have been blamed of not paying too much interest in what is happening in the rest of the continent. People are saying that South Africans...
Okay, keep it there, Siyasanga. We're going to continue with that point. We're going to take a very quick ad break, and after that, more Media Monitor. Stay with us.
Technology is all around us and is improving lives across Africa, like how young Nigerians are connecting to the internet. There are doctors finding new ways to save lives in Cameroon, and the South African public transport system that is now getting Wi-Fi. We have gadgets, apps and loads more, some of which play a big role in Africa's growth. A huge part of this African growth is technological innovation. To find out a bit more about social media and technology news from here in Africa and abroad, join me, Siphumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back to our final segment right here on Media Monitor. Let's take our final caller. It's Yomba from Zambia. Yomba, a very good morning to you. Thank you for staying on the line. Your comment, please, sir.
Yes, I would like to comment on the Nigerian issue.
Go ahead, Yombe.
It's not Yombe, it's Yotam. Y-O-T-A-M.
Yombe?
Hello?
Please continue,
Yotam.
sir. I'm going to have to ask you to quickly continue, sir.
Okay. My contribution is I'm just surprised with the South Africans. They all flock to Nigeria. I don't understand why, because in Nigeria there are a lot of issues there, issues to do with Boko Haram, but I don't know why they want to believe on this self-claimed prophet. Why do they want to believe in him? First, I think he should sort out his problems in Nigeria. But these people are just blindly following him.
All right.
And they just pray from South Africa rather than following this self-proclaimed pastor. Okay. They're just concerned on that. It's very bad that it happened like that.
Yombe, you have a very bad line, so we're struggling to hear you. I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave it there on the callers, but thank you so much for your contribution all the way in Zambia. We seem to be popular today in Zambia. Well, let's wrap our segment by reading those tweets. Let's see what some of our viewers have written to us. Levi Kwabato says, speculating Illuminati involvement in a Nigeria church building collapse. Hectic. Thank you so much, Levi Kwabato. Mazwai Voklega says, my condolences to the families. This is really bad for the country. Thank you so much for your contribution there. Notemba Majenge says, where was the other people? Why is it only South African people? Ish. Last but not least, Pilanim Mtembu says, a lot of crime that happens to people goes unreported because there are no police stations in the villages. Police are rude. All right, well, that's where we're going to leave it on your tweets panel. I just want to hear your views very quickly. Tarquin, what do you think is going to be making top stories this week?
I think we're going to continue with the church story due to the fact that there are a lot of South Africans that have been killed in the collapse. So we are going to see a lot more on this church due to the fact that we need to see when the bodies are coming back, when the people get back, and first-hand accounts of actually people inside. I've seen they've started with one or two people that have given their first-hand accounts.
All right. Thank you so much, Tarquin. Siyasanga, what will be making news headlines this week?
Yes, the church is going to be very big. There are a whole lot of questions that need to be answered around what happened and who is responsible and who is to blame. I also see the Ebola issue, continuing because it's still a big issue around affecting us.
Thank you so much, Siyasanga. Jacob, what do you think is going to be making big news this week?
I hope that they will pick up the tab on the crime statistics. I hope we'll have much more coverage.
Analysis.
And analysis on that, as well as Lesotho, we want to know what is happening in Lesotho. Please, journalists out there, we want to know. We are clueless on what is happening in Lesotho. We want to know. Hopefully they will pick up those stories and let us know what is happening.
Before we comment on the wrong information, well, thank you so much, panel, for joining me this morning. While our viewers' contributions and suggestions are very highly valued, you can follow us on Twitter at SA Media Monitor and share your views and comments on Facebook. Go to www.facebook.com/Media Monitor. And of course, like our page, you can still email us your views about the show at mediamonitor@sabc.co.za. Thank you so much for watching Media Monitor. Do join us next week, same time, right here on SABC News, on the SABC News channel. And just in case you missed our live show, remember you can still catch the repeat show tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. From myself, Alicia Tyali, and the rest of the QTIV team. Have yourself a blessed Heritage Day this coming Wednesday. Goodbye.
Technology is all around us and is improving lives across Africa, like how young Nigerians are connecting to the internet. There are doctors finding new ways to save lives in Cameroon, and the South African public transport system that is now getting Wi-Fi. We have gadgets, apps and loads more, some of which play a big role in Africa's growth. A huge part of this African growth is technological innovation. To find out a bit more about social media and technology news from here in Africa and abroad, join me, Siphumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
It's impossible for a person to walk in his destiny, his full destiny, without receiving Jesus. When we are born, we embark on a journey, and that journey is to find God.
Francois de Jager's journey from a troubled little boy to the pastor of a dynamic young evangelistic crusade called Salvation 10 began at an early age.
I can remember when I was a very little boy, my father was an alcoholic and my mother had an affair with another man. I got so confused, I was left empty. Because of that split up with my parents, this emptiness just got bigger and bigger, and I became more aware of this emptiness in my heart.
Francois' misguided attempt to fill the void in his life was to start smoking. He was only 7 years old.
If I start smoking, that will sort out that emptiness and that search in my life. And then by the age of 13 or maybe going on to 14, I was addicted to alcohol. I was an alcoholic. I also got expelled from school because of alcohol and drugs. To make a very long story short, I ended up on the street because nobody ever wanted me. Nobody, because I turned out to be this washout in their eyes.
Francois ended up staying with his father, who himself was staying with some friends. Francois continued in his drinking ways, and it all ended badly one night.
I don't know how to describe it. People afterwards, after the whole event, told me I ran around and wanted to grab the children and say, I'm Lucifer, I want the children. I really wanted to be violent against my father. And the person whose home it was, he came to me and said, Francois, I don't agree with this behavior. I give you 10 minutes and then you pack your bags and you're out of my house. I turned around and I went to the kitchen and I got 2 steak knives. And I really wanted to kill this man. He phoned the police, and about 10 or 15 minutes after that, the police were there. And I went to jail for attempted murder, but miraculously, like many parts of my life, I don't know how it works, but miraculously, I got released without any charges or anything. And once again, I landed up on the street. I started really to go into more drugs and more alcohol. I was just sleeping on the street. And there was this particular couple, a young married couple, and somehow they heard about me and they had compassion on me, and I believe that's the Holy Spirit. And they said to me, Francois, we will give you a place to stay. We will take you from the street on one condition: you must go for a rehabilitation course.
Francois' resolve didn't last too long. He was back to his old ways. When he got home one night from drinking, the couple were waiting for him.
They just looked at me with tears in their eyes. Obviously, I was too drunk to feel sorry. I said, well, this is the way of life. And they decided that they will invite me to go to church with them the next Sunday. I had absolutely no desire to go to church. I didn't know what to expect. I was very, very nervous. I knew nothing about Christianity. As I was sitting there, they started praise and worship, and then the preacher came on the pulpit, but he didn't preach. He was just standing there with a mic in his hand and closed his eyes and with one of his hands in the air. I was confused. All of a sudden, in this very quiet atmosphere, the youth started to jump up with flags and they started running around, and people started singing spontaneously, praising God and worshiping God.
What happened next changed Francois' life forever.
All of a sudden, I was cut off from all that activity around me, and this invisible force was with me. But I could hear it in my heart and in my mind. I could hear a voice saying to me, Francois, my name is Jesus. I love you. I died for you on the cross. If you leave this church building today without making a decision for me, you don't have long to live, and you're on your way to hell. In 3 seconds that morning, Jesus did for me what no person could do for me in 3 years, that no drugs could do for me in the 7 or 8 years that I used it. It was truly a miracle.
Over the next 2 years, Francois would study theology and become a youth pastor. Along the way, he met and married his wife, Armandi, but he felt a need inside, a passion that wouldn't sleep.
There's one particular night we couldn't sleep, Armandi and myself, and I said, well, let's go and pray. And I can remember we prayed for an hour, but it felt if I was praying against the ceiling. I got so frustrated and I said that to the Lord in my prayer. I can remember all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit was in that room. And I felt in my heart, the Holy Spirit said to me, where are those evangelists that will bring in the harvest of young people of this generation? And that's when we started Salvation to Every Nation, focusing on youth evangelism. Our main thrust is what we call Reload Youth Conferences. It's a big mass crusade focused on young people. And the reason we call it Reload is because this generation of young people is empty and they need to be reloaded. Not with any junk. They need to be reloaded with the love of Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit. We try to go indoors to make it more youth-friendly. Many churches struggle with how can we get young people in the church. And then I realized, Jesus had to become a human being in order to reach humans. And for us to reach young people, we must come on their level. We package the message in such a way that the young people feel comfortable with, and that they feel at home, and they feel relaxed. And as soon as they feel relaxed, they can listen to the gospel in such a way that they can relate to it. I speak to the young people about what's happening in their lives, and the way out is Jesus Christ.
There are scary statistics on the Salvation 10 website. Statistics that Francois has attained from institutions like Stats SA. But is it all about the numbers?
I'm not moved by stats, I'm moved by faith. It's not about the numbers. But we must always remember that Jesus died for the whole world, but Jesus also died for the individual. And every big crowd consists of individuals. Only by the gospel of Jesus, this country can be saved for Jesus Christ.
And in the end, Salvation 10 is not about Francois himself. It's about the youth and Jesus.
And when they see what it did in my life and many other people's lives, Jesus comes into their lives. He's responsible for salvation. I'm not so responsible. I'm just channeled by the messenger. I'm just the MC announcing the big speaker, Jesus himself.